Dear students, today we are going to talk about the antiplatelet drugs. What are the antiplatelet drugs? Drugs that inhibit platelet aggregation and ultimately they inhibit the clot formation, right? So these are the antiplatelet drugs. Let's look at their classification. The classification is made depending upon their mechanism of action. Okay, so first let's look at their mechanism of action and then we will talk about the classification. So there are few stimulating factors which cause platelet aggregation. So what are those stimulating factors? Number one, you can say thromboxane A2. Number two, ADP. Number three, GP2B3A receptors. Okay, so these are the three main factors which stimulate platelet aggregation. Now you know from the knowledge of your physiology how platelet aggregation occurs. Okay, we will not get into the details of all of these things, like first a vascular endothelial injury occurs and then von Willebrand factor gets attached there, and then there is attachment of platelets, and then GP2B3 through GP2B3A receptors, fibrinogen attaches with them, and then these factors act, and then we can get the platelet aggregation, that is platelet clot formation, right? So we are not getting into the details of these things. We are just looking at the main sites through which our drugs act. So our drugs act through the ADPs, through thromboxane A2s, and through GP2B3A receptors by blocking their action. So thromboxane A2, this factor, this substance is blocked by aspirin. Its synthesis is blocked by aspirin. Okay, it blocks the cyclooxygenase pathway and thereby it inhibits the formation of thromboxane A2, and thereby thromboxane A2 is a very strong substance which causes platelet aggregation, so thereby it inhibits the platelet aggregation. And ADP is also another factor, and ticlopidine, clopidogrel, this type of drugs inhibit this. And GP2B3A receptor is a very important receptor which actually presents on the surface of platelets. Okay, so here are two platelets you can see, and here are two GP2B3A receptor, and these are fibrinogen. So these things gets attached with these, okay, and one platelet gets attached with another platelet, so platelet aggregation occurs, right? Now let's look at their classification. So cyclooxygenase inhibitor, aspirin; ADP receptor antagonist like clopidogrel, prasugrel, ticagrelor, ticlopidine, etc. Then glycoprotein 2B3A receptor antagonist like abciximab, okay, eptifibatide, sounds very tough, right? And then tirofiban. Now phosphodiesterase 3 inhibitors are a separate group of drugs, okay, which has antiplatelet activities like cilostazol, dipyridamole. Okay, now let's come to aspirin. Aspirin is the most common antiplatelet drug. So let's look at its indications. First of all, in acute coronary syndrome, we give aspirin in acute coronary syndrome. Acute coronary syndrome comprises unstable angina, non-ST-MI and ST-AMI. So in these conditions usually a combo is given. What type of combo? Aspirin and clopidogrel, or if the patient cannot tolerate clopidogrel, then we can give aspirin and prasugrel. Okay. Pre and post PCI. In pre and post PCI conditions, we can give aspirin and ticagrelor, or aspirin and clopidogrel, or aspirin and abciximab. Okay. Then chronic coronary artery disease. In case of chronic coronary artery disease, we can give these antiplatelet drugs. we can give in ischemic stroke, not in hemorrhagic stroke. We can give these drugs in ischemic stroke like aspirin and ticlopidine, aspirin and dipyridamole. Then in case of carotid artery stenting, okay, aspirin clopidogrel, aspirin prasugrel, this type of combinations can be given. In giant cell arteritis, okay, in giant cell arteritis there is possibility of development of aortic dissection or things like that, so there we can give these drugs. Then in peripheral artery disease, aspirin clopidogrel, cilostazol, this type of drugs can be given. Cilostazol is preferred in this condition, okay. And as an alternative to ETT, we can give dipyridamole, okay. We will talk about this thing later. Now let's look at their side effects. What are their side effects or adverse effects? Number one, gastrointestinal. So these are the side effects of, you know, both aspirin and the other drugs, but mostly these are the side effects of aspirin, okay. So remember this. Now gastrointestinal irritation, they can cause gastritis, ulcers, bleeding, etc. Then salicylism, you know, the aspirin is salicylic acid, so they can cause salicylism. So salicylism consists of tinnitus, vertigo, hearing difficulty, okay. So decreased hearing is the first sign of toxicity in the most of the circumstances, right? And they can cause bronchoconstriction as well, and that can lead to exacerbation of asthma, okay. Then they can cause hypersensitivity reactions in some patients, especially the triad of asthma, nasal polyp and rhinitis. This can occur. Then you can say Reye's syndrome and encephalopathy, about which we will talk later. And then they can increase the bleeding time, that is antiplatelet effect. They can cause agranulocytosis, they can cause thrombocytopenic purpura and renal damage, right? So agranulocytosis and thrombocytopenia, okay, these effects mainly occur due to clopidogrel or, you know, the ADP receptor antagonist type of drugs cause these effects, okay. So these are not due to aspirin. These things are mainly due to clopidogrel, okay. And renal damage can occur due to these drugs, okay. Now let's come to drug interactions. You'll find some important drug interactions here with aspirin. So ethanol, if you give ethanol along with aspirin, that can lead to increased gastrointestinal bleeding, because that will inhibit aspirin metabolism and thereby increase its adverse effects, okay. Now oral sulfonyl ureas and warfarin. Oral sulfonyl ureas are type of, you know, anti-diabetic drugs, and warfarin is an anticoagulant drug. So if you give aspirin along with these drugs, then that will lead to increase in their effects. So aspirin displaces these drugs from their plasma protein binding sites and thereby increasing their actions, okay. That will lead to hypoglycemia in case of sulfonyl ureas, and that will lead to bleeding in case of warfarin. Now uricosuric agents, okay, like probenecid, okay. So this type of drugs, if you give probenecid along with aspirin, that will lead to decreased effect of probenecid. Why? Because aspirin inhibits the secretion of uric acid into renal tubules and reduces the effects of uricosuric agents, okay. Now let's look at the aspirin overdose and its management. Now extensions of the toxic actions described above, okay, plus at high doses that can lead to vasomotor collapse, okay, with both respiratory and renal failure. And there is no specific antidote for aspirin overdose. So management includes gastric lavage. First you can give gastric lavage with activated charcoal or without activated charcoal, plus ventilatory support and symptomatic management. So these are the general management of acid base and electrolyte imbalance and the hyperthermia and resulting dehydration. These are the general management. And increased urine volume and its alkalinization facilitates salicylates renal elimination, okay. So this is an acidic drug, so if you want to excrete this drug through urine, you need to alkalinize this. So alkalinization facilitates salicylate's renal elimination. Okay, so aspirin follows zero order elimination kinetics at toxic doses. As you know, there are a few drugs that follow zero order elimination kinetics, and one of them is aspirin. Okay, in high doses, aspirin follows zero order elimination kinetics. Let's look at their contraindications. So number one, contraindication. This is the most important contraindication you have to remember. That is children with viral fever. Children with viral fever, you never give aspirin. Okay. So if you are not sure the fever is viral or not, assuming that a viral fever, you will not give aspirin to children with fever. Okay, you will have to give what? Paracetamol. Paracetamol is the safest agent. Okay, and then so there is chance of development of Reye's syndrome or Reye's syndrome, whatever you like to call it. Then patients with low platelet count. So a patient who has already low platelet count, you cannot give him antiplatelet drugs. That will drop the platelet count a lot. Okay. Then uncontrolled hypertension, that can lead to in case of uncontrolled hypertension, you cannot give. That can lead to aortic dissection, and of course in case of aortic dissection you cannot give these drugs. In case of bleeding PUD, you do not give that drug, and in case of hemorrhagic stroke. Okay. So what is Reye's syndrome? Reye's syndrome is a very rare disorder that can cause serious liver and brain damage. Okay, and if it's not treated promptly, it may lead to permanent brain injury or death. And Reye's syndrome mainly affects children and young adults under 20 years of age. And you can see this some symptoms of Reye's syndrome. The symptoms of Reye's syndrome usually begin a few days after a viral infection, such as a cold, flu, or chickenpox. Initial symptoms may include repeatedly being sick, tiredness, and lack of interest or enthusiasm, rapid breathing, seizures, etc. And in later stages, the child will develop irritability or irrational or aggressive behavior, severe anxiety and confusion that sometimes associated with hallucinations that can lead to coma, etc. So hope you find this lecture useful. Thank you very much.